Hello everyone, tonight we're going to slowly, softly, and sneakily deconstruct the very things you think you know for sure, starting with a feeling you didn't even know you had certainty. Picture this. You're walking through your apartment in the dark. You know where the coffee table is? You don't see it. You just know. And you don't stub your toe because your brain filled in the map. But was the coffee table ever really there at all? Or did you trust a shortcut your brain offered? Like a whisper saying, "It's fine. I got this." You can either rethink everything or fall asleep without even noticing. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Feel free to drop your thoughts, your city, and what time it is for you in the comments. Now, turn down the lights, maybe crank up the AC for some soft noise, and let's get started tonight. You've probably heard the phrase making assumptions. What you probably haven't realized is that your entire life is built on them. Not the big, dramatic ones like I assume I'll win the lottery, but the small, silent ones like this chair is solid, or the ground beneath me is still there. Your brain is a master of efficiency. It builds shortcuts, heuristics to keep you from having to process the entire universe every time you blink. Imagine walking into your kitchen and flipping the switch. The light goes on. You assume the wiring works. You assume there's electricity. You assume you're in your own kitchen and not inside a carefully simulated environment controlled by hyper-intelligent frogs. Okay, maybe not that last one. But even that assumption, the ridiculous one, is a reality distortion you carry. Because your brain doesn't like unknowns. It's a prediction machine. And reality is whatever keeps your inner prediction engine from overheating. Psychologists call this cognitive bias a mental shortcut used to save time and effort. One of the classics is the confirmation bias. You believe the world works a certain way, and then, surprise you, notice only things that confirm your belief. It's like playing hide and seek, but you're also the seeker, the hider, and the judge yelling, "Found it," the moment you look in the mirror. Here's a strange little fact to tuck into your pillow tonight. In 1951, during a football game between Princeton and Dartmouth, fans of each team watched the same game and gave wildly different reports of what happened. One side claimed their team played fair, and the other was dirty. The other side, of course, said the exact opposite. When psychologists showed the same footage to fans from both schools, they still gave completely contradictory accounts. Not because they were lying, because their assumptions filtered what they saw. Scientists, philosophers, and social media gurus still argue about how much of what you experience is raw truth and how much is internal hallucination. Your brain isn't a camera, it's a courtroom. Evidence comes in, gets interpreted, and is bent around pre-existing beliefs like a rubber gavel slamming down on déjà vu. Now imagine your thoughts as a lazy intern working the overnight shift at Reality Inc. She doesn't double check, she doesn't test, she just takes the emails from assumptions depth and rubber stamps that size with truth before passing them on. What you end up with isn't reality. It's a spreadsheet of guesses dressed in business casual. Here's a quick experiment. Think of your phone, not where it is, just that it exists. Okay, now, do you know it exists right now? Or are you just assuming you haven't checked it in minutes? Maybe hours? For all you know, it could have disappeared to the quantum foam like a sock in the laundry. But your brain assumes it's still there. You don't panic. You don't run to check. Your brain says, it was there before, it's probably there now. Assumption granted. This is called object permanence, a skill babies develop after a few months. But grown-up object permanence turns into something weirder, reality permanence. We start to believe that what was must still be, because rechecking the world every second would be exhausting. It's a smart shortcut. It's also a terrifying opening for glitchy thoughts. Let's stretch this a bit further. You know your name, right? Say it in your head. That's you. That's who you are. Now imagine waking up in a room where everyone calls you something else. They hand you a different ID. They show you photos of you doing things you don't remember. How long before you just go along with it? There's an old idea in philosophy: if you can't prove something beyond doubt, you probably assumed it. René Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," but even that's an assumption about what I means. Maybe you are just the part that noticed the thought happen. It's late, I know, but here's one more to keep you up just a little longer when you dream. You never question the world until you wake up. What if your waking life is just a slightly more detailed dream, and the assumptions you make are the only thing keeping it from falling apart? There's an ancient Buddhist metaphor of a man shot by an arrow. He refuses help, saying, "Before you treat me, I must know who shot it, what it's made of, and where it came from." That's how we treat reality. We want to understand before we accept, but the brain doesn't work that way. It says, you're fine. Assume the coffee table is there. So as you drift towards sleep, notice what you're assuming right now: the safety of your room, the softness of your blanket, the identity of the voice in your ear. If even one of those is wrong, you wouldn't know. You just float deeper into a world built from shortcuts. But hey, that's what dreams are for. Section 2. You're standing in front of your childhood home. The grass is a little too green. The swing set creaks just like it used to. You know you've been here before. You remember falling off that swing and scraping your knee. Your mom ran over. She picked you up. You cried. You can see it in your head like it was yesterday, except it might not have happened that way, or at all. See, your brain is not a storage locker. It's more like a Google Doc. Every time you open a memory, you edit it. You add today's emotions, today's fears, today's biases. Then you hit save without even realizing it. This means your oldest memories are often the least reliable. Like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, but it still feels like truth. The technical name for this is reconstructive memory. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus famously showed how easy it is to plant false memories. In one experiment, she got people to remember being lost in a mall as children even though it never happened. All it took was a suggestion, a little narrative, and boom, a new memory was born. Here's a funny but weird example. In 2010, a bunch of people online swore they remembered a 90s movie starring comedian Sinbad as a genie. They described it in detail: the genie's name, the plot, the VHS cover art. They argued about it. Problem: the movie never existed. It's now known as the Shazam effect. A collective misremembering so confident, people accuse the internet of erasing evidence. Scientists, sociologists, and conspiracy YouTubers still argue about whether this proves parallel dimensions, government gaslighting, or just mass suggestibility. But the fact remains, our memories aren't records, they're remixes. So when you say, "I remember it like it was yesterday," what you really mean is, I reconstructed that yesterday using whatever scraps of emotion I had lying around today. Let's do a little experiment together. Think of your earliest clear memory. Really put yourself there, Nut. Got it. Now ask, what time of day was it? What were you wearing? What did it smell like? Odds are, you just made up at least one of those answers. Not on purpose. Your brain filled in the gaps. That's called confabulation. And it's not lying, it's improvising. Like a jazz solo where the saxophonist forgot the sheet music and just kind of vibes. Your brain would rather tell a complete story than an accurate one. This is why two people in the same argument remember completely different things and both are convinced they're right. Your ex didn't forget what they said, they rewrote it in their mind. So did you. No one is lying. Everyone's brains are just terrible stenographers. Imagine your mind as a courtroom drama where all the witnesses are drunk, the lawyers are improvising, and the judge is asleep. You're not recalling the truth, you're performing it. Here's a weird true story. In the 1980s, a man named Paul Ingram confessed to crimes he almost certainly did not commit. Why, under enough pressure and suggestion, he started to remember events that never happened, vivid, detailed, emotional memories. Once those memories were in place, they felt just as real as anything else. So yeah, your memories can be hacked. By others, by suggestion, by time, even by your own emotions. You ever notice how a breakup gets worse the more you think about it? At first, it's just, we had a fight. Then it becomes, we were never right for each other. Eventually, you're remembering scenes from Titanic and attributing them to your own relationship. You start to wonder if you were ever happy at all. Your brain is doing a dark little thing here, emotional filtering. You remember through the lens of how you currently feel. If you're sad, the past becomes sad too. If you're anxious, you remember only the parts that justify that fear. Your memories become a kind of emotional weather report, cloudy with a chance of dread. Let's get spookier. Have you ever remembered remembering something like, you don't remember the event, but you remember that one time you talked about it? That's called meta-memory. A memory of a memory. You're like a file cabinet made entirely of Post-it notes stuck to other Post-it notes. And here's a mind bender for your sleep playlist. Some scientists believe that your memories of childhood might not be yours at all. They could be stitched together from photographs, stories you were told, even dreams. You remember the memory, not the moment. So who are you? Really, if your past is more of a rumor than a record, well, you're still you. Kind of just not the historian version of you. You're more like a fan fiction author, rewriting your own origin story with every draft, and that's okay. It's how humans cope. We survive not because we remember perfectly, but because we remember usefully. Remember the guy from Section 1 who thought he was in control, the one trusting his brain's assumptions, like a GPS that never updates. Yeah, that same guy is now arguing with his spouse over something that happened 10 years ago on vacation. He says, "You were wearing the red shirt." She says, "I never owned a red shirt." He insists it was the red one, with the sleeves. She replies, "That was your ex." Cue memory meltdown. But don't worry, as you fall asleep tonight, remember that your memories aren't lies. They're dreams you keep waking up inside, flexible, emotional, foggy dreams that just happen to be carrying your name and address. So relax. Let your memories do what they do best, fade into fiction. You'll wake up with the same name. Probably. Section 3. Close your eyes. Hold your hand out in front of you. Now, gently press your thumb and index finger together. Feel that slight resistance, that soft pressure. Okay. Now prepare for something uncomfortable. You didn't actually touch anything. Not your fingers, not your phone, not your pillow, not even the floor. In fact, you've never truly touched anything in your entire life. Not once. Still with me? Let's zoom way in, beneath your skin, past the cells, into the atoms. The little particles that make up you and everything else. Those atoms, they're mostly empty space. And the electrons on the outside of your atoms, they don't touch the electrons of the object you're touching. What actually happens is a teeny, tiny electromagnetic force repels them. It's like two magnets that won't quite meet. They get close, but never kiss. So when you touch a table, you're experiencing the illusion of contact. Your nerves are just interpreting the repulsion force as pressure. It's like a VR glove made of lies and lightning. This is what physics calls the Pauli exclusion principle, an electromagnetic repulsion. No two identical fermions like electrons can occupy the same quantum state. So atoms don't fuse together. When you tap your phone screen, they just politely push back. Now, this might not ruin your night unless you really sit with it. Think about hugs. Think about kisses. Think about the time you tripped and face planted into a pole outside a Wendy's. All those experiences technically just force fields colliding. One physicist once joked, if we really touch things, our atoms would merge and we'd be goo by now. So, hey, good news. You're not goo. You're just very good at almost making contact. Scientists, philosophers, and sci-fi screenwriters still argue about whether this means reality is actually tactile or just interpreted to feel that way. Maybe it's not that we can't touch. Maybe touch is a mental overlay. Like how your phone screen feels warm even though it isn't warm from your skin's perspective, just less cold. Here's a weird fact to add to your existential burrito. Astronauts in space often report the sensation of touching things that aren't there, phantom itches, pressure where there shouldn't be pressure. It's as if the body expects touch, and when it doesn't get it, the brain says, no problem, I'll invent it. And it's not just outer space. You ever sleep on your arm and wake up thinking it's a stranger's limb? Your sense of touch is wildly unreliable. You're basically outsourcing reality to a body that runs on guesstimates. Here's a story. A guy in Arizona once lost his ability to feel anything below his neck after an injury, but he could still sense the shape of things touching his hands. If he stared at them, his brain started compensating by combining visual data with memory. A spoon didn't feel cold, but if he saw it and remembered it as cold, the sensation returned like a ghost. His eyes became his new skin. That's how desperate your brain is to feel. It'll cheat, it'll lie, it'll invent whole fake sensations just to keep the simulation running smoothly. Let's bring it closer to home. You know the sensation of typing on your phone. Those little micro vibrations, the faint resistance of the screen, that's called haptic feedback. Your phone is simulating touch because if it didn't, you'd feel weirdly disconnected. You'd tap and feel nothing. Like poking a hologram, which, again, is basically what you're already doing. Imagine if tomorrow, all touch was replaced by vibration-based simulations. Would you notice? Probably not. You already interpret touch through electrical signals. Your nerves are just mail carriers. They don't know if the package is real, they just deliver the message. Hey, pressure on index finger. React accordingly. Here's the kicker, you only feel things after the signal has traveled to your brain. There's a delay, a gap. So even if you could touch something, the moment would already be over before you felt it. You live your entire life slightly in the past. Your body is a nostalgia machine. Remember back in section 1 when we talked about assumptions. Here's a big one: you assume that because you feel something, it's happening now. But nope. Your brain is time-stamping events and sending them to your "you are here" inbox with a slight lag. Like a live stream with buffering. This also explains the weird slow-motion feeling during accidents. Your brain temporarily speeds up its processing to give the illusion that you're experiencing more in less time. But that's not time slowing. It's you catching up to the delay, a mental fast-forward through the moment just before the impact. So let's do another sleep-friendly experiment. Lie still. Focus on where your body meets your mattress. Now imagine that you're just floating millimeters above it. The electromagnetic field of your atoms gently repelling the mattress's field. You're not lying on it. You're hovering. Always hovering. Kind of like your thoughts, right? That idea you had earlier, did you touch it? Did it exist? Or did it just brush past your awareness like an invisible wind? That's what tonight's about, realizing how much of your life is made of non-contact. Words that almost meant what you needed, emotions you almost expressed, people you almost connected with, and yet it all felt real. Maybe reality isn't about hard lines and definite pressure. Maybe it's about the impulse to reach, even if we never fully connect, the impression of contact, the idea of warmth, the memory of skin. So tonight, while you drift off, imagine that even though you're not truly touching your bed, you're still being held by gravity, by routine, by the slow dance of atoms too polite to collide. You're floating, but gently, safely, softly, and you can let go now. You won't fall. Section 4. You reach for a cookie. Simple enough. You think, I want that. And your hand obeys. A clean line between desire and action. Free will in motion. Right. Let's throw a wrench in that warm, buttery illusion. What if your brain had already decided to grab the cookie before you chose to do it? What if your thought wasn't the command, but the explanation? Back in the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet ran a spooky little experiment. He asked participants to flex their wrists whenever they felt like it and to note exactly when they decided to do it. While they sat there, wires hooked to their heads. Libet measured the timing of everything: the muscle twitch, the conscious decision, and the brain's preparatory activity. Here's the unsettling result. Their brain started preparing for the movement nearly half a second before they consciously decided to act. That's not a delay. That's a plot twist. Libet's findings suggest that your brain acts first, and your decision comes later, just in time to take credit. It's like your consciousness is a late-night sports announcer giving play-by-play commentary on a game that already happened. Scientists, philosophers, and caffeine-addled Reddit users still argue about whether this kills the idea of free will or just complicates it. But let's put it in bedtime terms. Your brain is like a cat that knocked over a vase, and your conscious mind is the roommate arriving later, yelling, "Why would I do that?" Let's tell a quick story. Meet Jonah. Jonah likes to think he's a decisive guy. He orders the spiciest thing on the menu, wears mismatched socks on purpose, and once broke up with someone because they didn't like Radiohead enough. But when Jonah was put in an fMRI scanner and asked to make simple choices, press left or right, researchers predicted his decisions up to 7 seconds before he made them 7 seconds. That's a lifetime in brain terms. That's your neurons saying, "We got this. Just keep the illusion running." This is part of what neuroscientists call the readiness potential, a buildup of electrical activity in your brain that precedes your conscious action. The spooky part, you don't feel it. You just become aware when it's already too late to not want the cookie. Here's a comparison for your dreams tonight. Imagine watching a movie where the character does something wild, quits their job, jumps into a river, kisses the wrong person. You gasp. You say, "Why'd they do that?" But they're not real. Their actions were scripted. You're just reacting. Now flip the roles. You're the character. Your brain is the writer. And your awareness. It's the movie critic trying to explain the plot after the credits roll. There's another layer to this that's creepier. The longer you think about it, your brain might create your desire after the action has already begun. You don't grab the cookie because you want it, you want the cookie because you're already halfway to grabbing it. This is called post hoc rationalization. Your mind loves tidy stories. It's allergic to randomness. So when your body does something spontaneous, Your brain scrambles to create a narrative. I did that because it becomes a retroactive justification. And yet, we cling to free will. We need it like we need socks and social validation. Because without it, things get uncomfortable. You start to wonder, who's really driving this thing? Let's dip into the philosophical end of the pool. There's a theory called epiphenomenalism. Try saying that 5 times fast. It's the idea that consciousness doesn't cause anything. It's just along for the ride. Like steam from a train engine. The steam doesn't move the train. It's just evidence the engine is running. Under that view, your thoughts don't control your actions. They just accompany them. Like background music or elevator jazz. Nice to have. Doesn't change the floors. Now, before you spiral into a full identity crisis, take comfort in this if your brain is doing all the heavy lifting. At least it's doing a pretty good job most days. You breathe, you walk, you blink. You laugh at memes you didn't choose to find funny. Somehow, life continues. And anyway, even if you're not truly in control, you're experiencing the illusion of control, which might be the same thing, functionally. Think of it as dream logic you're flying, but it feels natural. You don't question how, you just ride the wind. Let's bring it back to sleep. Imagine you're drifting off. You roll over, adjust your pillow, maybe scratch your knee. Did you decide to do any of that? Maybe not. But you'll still remember doing it. Your mind will write a soft bedtime story to explain your body's slow ballet under the covers. And here's a relaxing twist. What if that's okay? What if you don't need to be the driver to enjoy the ride? What if you're the passenger on a late-night train, staring out the window, letting your thoughts blur into motion and dreams? Remember Jonah. He still broke up with the Radiohead hater. But now he wonders, did he choose to do that? Or did his brain just make the decision before he even realized he was done? Maybe the real you is the one who observes, who feels the ripple of decisions already made, who narrates the story as it unfolds, not writing, but reading aloud with dramatic flair. So tonight, as your limbs relax and your breath evens out, let go of the pressure to be the author. Let your mind be the reader. Let your body turn the page. The story is already written. All you have to do is drift. Section 5. You're staring straight ahead, but you're blind. Not permanently, not dangerously, just invisibly. Right now, there's a part of your vision that's just missing. A blank, a glitch, a hole in the matrix, patched with a guess. Welcome to the blind spot. Every human eye has one. It's the place where the optic nerve exits the back of the eye. No photoreceptors, no rods, no cones, no data. It's like the plug socket of your vision, a place where nothing gets through. And yet, you don't notice. Why? Because your brain is lying to you again. Sweetly, gently, like a bedtime story told by a nervous parent who doesn't want to explain what taxes are. Instead of showing you a literal gap in your vision, your brain plays Photoshop. It looks at the area around the blind spot and fills in what's probably there. It's impressive and completely fabricated. Scientists, neuroscientists, and optical illusion YouTubers still argue about just how often your brain pulls this trick. But the short answer is constantly, your blind spot is just the opening act. The full show includes saccadic masking, change blindness, and motion-induced blindness. It's not just that you miss things, it's that your brain erases the fact you ever missed them at all. Let's try something fun. Hold your hands out in front of your face, arms wide like you're about to give reality a big ol' hug. Wiggle your fingers. You'll see them in your peripheral vision. Right now, slowly bring them back, wider, wider, until you can't see the wiggling anymore. They're still there, moving, but your brain stops reporting them. Not because it can't detect them, but because it's decided this is unimportant. We're on a budget. That's not a metaphor. Your brain literally runs on limited processing power. It prioritizes some data over others. Like when your phone lags if you open too many apps. Your brain's solution: kill a few tabs, blur some stuff, hide what you're not directly looking at. It's visual minimalism enforced by biology. Let's get weirder. You're in a room. A light flickers on. You glance around. Everything seems normal. But then something changes. The chair is gone. The plant moved. The curtains are a different color. Do you notice? Probably not. That's called change blindness. Unless you're hyper-focused, your brain smooths over sudden shifts in your environment. It assumes continuity. Because change, alertness, has energy drain. And your brain is the ultimate energy conservationist. It's basically a lazy editor who hates reshoots. Here's a famous example in a psychology experiment. A man stops pedestrians on the street to ask for directions. Mid-conversation, two people rudely carry a door between them, blocking the view. When the door passes, the original guy is gone, replaced by a different person. And most participants don't notice. They just keep talking like nothing happened. Let that sink in. Someone literally shape-shifted in front of them, and their brains just shrugged. Because your brain edits reality to maintain the illusion of continuity, you might be wondering if we're all seeing filtered, incomplete versions of reality. How do we ever agree on anything? Answer: we don't. We just get close enough. Shared hallucinations that overlap in useful places, like agreeing where the door is but arguing about what color it is, what it means, and whether it's open or closed. Here's a creepy little bedtime fact: when your eyes dart from one thing to another, say, from this sentence to your lamp, your vision actually goes dark for a split second, but you don't notice. Because your brain deletes the footage and splices the cut like a sneaky film editor. That's saccadic suppression. Your eyes jump, your vision blinks, and your brain pastes the two scenes together like nothing happened. It's like reality is being delivered to you in little jump cuts, and you never even see the transitions. Let's talk about motion-induced blindness now. Look at a still object while surrounded by moving patterns like spinning dots or waving background. Your brain might cause that still object to vanish. Just poof. Mid-gaze. Because the brain prioritizes movement and drops irrelevant data to keep things simple. This isn't just theoretical. It's been tested again and again in labs. You can watch it happen. But outside the lab, in real life, you don't see the glitches. Your brain hides them under layers of perfectly smooth experience. You live in a highlight reel. Let's take a story break. A guy named Louis once got into a car crash because he didn't see the other car. It wasn't that the car was hidden. It wasn't invisible. It just didn't register. His brain was focused on the traffic light, the GPS, the soft jazz on the radio. When asked what happened, Louis said, "It came out of nowhere." That's not just drama. It's neurological truth. The car didn't appear. His brain cut it out of the scene until it was too late. So the next time you think, "I saw that coming," ask yourself, did your brain retroactively add it in like a director reshooting a key scene? Let's try a cozy thought experiment. As you settle in, imagine your brain as a movie set. You're the star. The set is elaborate props, extras, lights, but only what the camera sees is fully built. Everything else, cardboard, suggestions, painted on shadows. If you turn around too quickly, the illusion might crack, but it doesn't. Because you never turn around fast enough, Your brain always stays a step ahead, filling in the missing bricks before you notice. That's not deception. That's love. That's care. That's an exhausted production team trying to keep the show going. So as you drift off tonight, remember you are not seeing reality. You are seeing a guess. A best fit version of the world built on habit, shortcuts, and assumptions. But that's okay, because it works. It's safe. It gets you through the day. And in dreams, the edits are even smoother. Section 6. You wake up and forget your dream. You brush your teeth in a trance. You stare at your closet for 10 minutes wondering if pants are really worth the hassle. And then you walk into your day assuming it all makes sense. But does it? Here's the thing, dream logic is not confined to dreams. It leaks. It seeps into your waking life like steam under a bathroom door, curling into the corners of your decisions, your routines, your thoughts. You think you're awake, alert, rational, but beneath the surface, a whole dream world is bubbling. You're not just thinking, you're associating. Let's try this. Think of a giraffe. Now think of a ladder. Now imagine the giraffe climbing the ladder to get into your apartment. You laughed, maybe, or blinked, or thought, what am I doing? But your brain went with it. That's dream logic. Absurd connections accepted without protest. And it's not just for sleep. Your brain does this all the time in the background. When you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're looking for your keys and checking the fridge, even though that makes zero sense. Dream logic isn't irrational, it's hyper-associative. It says, this reminds me of that. So maybe they're connected. That's why you see a face in your toast. Or assume someone's mad at you because they used a period in their text. That's why someone says banana and you think of your ex. Scientists and psychoanalysts still argue about what dreams are for. Freud thought they revealed secret desires. Modern researchers lean toward brain garbage disposal. But some cognitive scientists believe dreams are a side effect of your brain trying to make connections between unrelated things, like creative brainstorming, with worse lighting. Here's a weird fact for your pillow. Tonight, people awaken during REM sleep and asked to solve puzzles often do better than people fully awake. Something about dream mode helps connect dots that don't normally connect. So yeah, dream logic isn't a glitch. It's a feature. Let's meet Carla. Carla works in tech support. She's efficient, no nonsense, and allergic to whimsy. One day, she tells a coworker I had a dream where my stapler was melting, and then my childhood dog told me I should switch banks. They laugh. She laughs. But 2 days later, she does switch banks. Not because of the dream, she says, but because the fees were annoying. But were they? Or did the dream nudge her? A background whisper that echoed just long enough to bend her logic Carla's not alone? Researchers call this incubation effect. Dreams don't give you answers, they give you frames. And once the frame is set, your brain fills in the logic. It's kind of like your GPS recalculating in the middle of traffic. The detour isn't based on straight lines, it's based on what seems close enough. Let's go further. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why, or sat through a meeting, daydreaming about cheese wheels on conveyor belts, only to suddenly remember your to-do list? That's dream logic hijacking your daily thoughts. Your brain was following a thread you didn't even know existed, and suddenly it surfaced. Like a scuba diver bursting through the water, holding a rubber duck and yelling, "I remembered to send that email." That's how dream priming works. Waking life cues trigger subconscious patterns, and your brain doesn't care whether they come from REM sleep or office coffee. Remember section 3 where we talked about never really touching anything? Well, dream logic is kind of like that, but for reasoning. You're never really touching the full truth, you're hovering just above it, piecing it together from fragments that feel close enough. Dream logic is why déjà vu happens. Your brain sees something similar to a past fragment, maybe from a dream, and that says, oh hey, I've been here before. You haven't, but the pattern is close enough. It's also why you sometimes solve a problem in the shower or come up with a perfect comeback 4 hours later. Your brain went offline from logic and entered dream adjacency. Let's do another cozy brain loop before bed. Imagine you're walking through your neighborhood. Everything is just slightly wrong. The mailboxes are upside down, a dog is floating, people are talking in reverse, but no one's panicking. You feel calmly confused. That's dream logic in its purest form. Not chaos, not horror, just warped normalcy. The mind bending its own rules without snapping them, and in real life, you experience this more than you think. You make decisions based on hunches. You sense vibes. You follow whims. You do things because they just feel right. That's not logic. It's dream logic in disguise. Winking at you through the daylight? There's a soft power in this. Because sometimes dream logic sees possibilities your waking mind would ignore. It's why artists, writers, and inventors worship their subconscious like a half-drunk oracle. They know the best ideas don't arrive by schedule, they drift in. So tonight, if your thoughts seem random, if your mind bounces from socks to snakes, to your old third-grade teacher who maybe looked like a sock-snake hybrid, don't resist. Let the logic leak. Let the world ripple. Let sense be a secondary concern. You've spent all day being rational. Now, let your thoughts melt a little. Let the stapler talk. Let the dog advise you on finances. Trust the giraffe on the ladder. It's your dream now. Section 7. Tick, tock. Tick, tock. That's not time passing. That's just your clock pretending it knows what's going on. Because time doesn't flow. Not like water. Not like music. Not like your weekend when you say, where did it go? Time, as we feel it, might be one of the biggest reality distortions of all. Let's start with a thought. What if time isn't a river, but a frozen lake, and you, skating across it, are just tricking yourself into believing there's movement when there's only ice in physics, particularly Einstein's theory of relativity? Time isn't a standalone thing. It's part of a four-dimensional fabric called space-time. Past, present, and future all exist at once, like different rooms in the same house. You're just walking through them one at a time. Or more accurately, you're experiencing them one at a time, but they're all already there. You ever watch a cat chase a laser pointer it thinks it's making progress? But to you, the laser god, you already know exactly where it's going. You've already decided the cat's excitement, adorable, but completely misplaced. Now imagine you're the cat, and time is the laser. Yeah, scientists, philosophers, and theoretical physicists still argue about whether time actually flows or if that's just how human consciousness perceives changes in entropy. Some physicists argue the arrow of time is a side effect of increasing disorderly choke. So, why your closet never stays clean. Here's a weird fact for your mental nap. In space, time moves slower in stronger gravitational fields. That's not science fiction. That's the twin paradox. If you send one twin into orbit at near light speeds and leave the other on Earth, the space twin will come back younger. It's been tested with atomic clocks on planes. Time actually bends. You feel time as constant uniform, ticking along. But really, your perception of time is tied to change. If nothing changes, time feels like it stands still. That's why a boring Zoom meeting lasts forever. But a good nap lasts 6 seconds. Let's meet Reggie. Reggie works night shifts at a hotel. Same hallway, same dingy wallpaper, same slow elevator. After a few weeks, he starts to feel like time is looping. Monday becomes Thursday, becomes Tuesday, becomes somehow last Wednesday. He forgets how long he's been there. Everything's just one long hallway. And that's not madness, it's psychology. When nothing new happens, your brain compresses the timeline. No mental landmarks, then nothing happened. Memory and time perception are best friends if one stops paying attention. The other gets confused. That's why childhood summers felt endless. You were constantly learning, noticing, tagging the days with events. Now, days slide by like socks on a wood floor. In fact, one theory suggests time is constructed after the fact, like memory, but sneakier. You experience moments, and then your brain stitches them together like a documentary with a biased narrator. This happened. Then this, totally linear. Nothing to see here. But think about déjà vu. That strange sensation that this has happened before? What if that's your timeline slipping? Mental page being reread out of order. Or ever notice how time feels different depending on mood? Anxiety speeds it up, boredom stretches it, love, forget it. 2 hours turns into 6 minutes, waiting for someone to text back. 6 minutes feels like a medieval sentence. Here's another freaky example people in accidents often report time slowing down. A car skids, a bike crashes, a fall begins. They say it took forever. But no, their brains just started recording faster. Not more time, just more frames. Like a camera switching to slow motion. You see, your brain is the editor of your timeline. It decides how smooth the footage feels, how long each clip runs, which scenes matter. Time is the film. You're just the audience, munching popcorn and trying not to blink during the scary parts. And time travel, well, you do it every night, sort of. When you sleep, hours vanish. One moment you're setting your alarm, the next it's morning. 8 hours just gone. If time flowed naturally, why don't we feel those hours passing? Because consciousness is the metronome. No awareness, no beat. So here's a thought for your next dream. Maybe time isn't something you move through, it's something you generate by moving like a treadmill that only turns on when you take a step. No step. No forward motion. No forward motion. No time. Let's wrap this up with a cozy paradox in physics. The present moment doesn't exist in the equations. There's no now in relativity, just coordinates. The now is yours, personal, custom built. So as you lie here, counting breaths or drifting off, remember time isn't ticking, it's stretching, it's curling, it's waiting for you to notice. And if it ever feels like it's running out, maybe that's just another illusion. Maybe right now, you're not on a clock. You're floating in a frozen moment, suspended in thought, untouchable by minutes or years. Let it hold you. Section 8. You're at a party. The music's a little too loud. Someone's friend of a friend is ranting about cryptocurrency. And someone else is crying in the kitchen. You make eye contact with someone across the room. They smile. You smile back. Boom connection. Or is it because here's the secret, no two people experience the same reality? Not even close. Your version of that smile, of this party, of this very moment exists only in your head. And everyone else is doing the exact same thing, building their own version of the world based on their memories, their expectations, their internal weather. So if it ever feels like no one understands you, they don't, not exactly, and you don't understand them either. You just overlap. Let's introduce a word to cradle you tonight, Umwelt. It's German, and it means the surrounding world, but in science, it refers to the unique sensory world of each organism. A dog's Umwelt includes smells we'll never detect. A bat's Umwelt is built from echolocation. A bee sees ultraviolet patterns on flowers we just call yellow, and you have an Umwelt too. But it's not just physical, it's psychological, emotional, existential. You're living in a bubble shaped by your nervous system and your history, and so is everyone else. Scientists, sociologists, and extremely online philosophy majors still argue about just how much overlap is possible between different perceptual worlds, but the working theory, just enough to function, just enough to form a loose consensus reality. The rest is unknowable. Let's talk about Nia. She and her partner, Alex, both went on the same vacation last year, a quiet cabin, a stormy lake, a weird Airbnb host named Daniel, who may or may not have been a ghost. They've told the story to friends a dozen times, but the details always different. Nia remembers soft rain, deep conversations, and feeling deeply connected. Alex remembers muddy hiking trails, a stomach bug, and missing good Wi-Fi. Same place, same time, different timelines. Because memory isn't the only distortion. Attention is, too. You notice what matters to you. You prioritize what fits your mood, your fears, your narrative. It's like two people watching the same movie but with different subtitles. Or worse, different genres. One thinks it's a comedy. The other's watching a psychological thriller. So when you think someone gets it, what you really mean is they're hallucinating a reality close enough to mine that we can share a sentence without imploding. Let's make that comforting. Reality isn't a shared table, it's a potluck. Everyone brings their own dish. You might be passing mashed potatoes while the person across from you sees cotton candy. As long as no one throws it across the room, you're good. Here's a fun fact to stuff under your pillow. The dress, you know the one. Blue and black, white and gold. In 2015, the internet lost its collective mind over a photograph of a dress taken in weird lighting. Some people swore it was blue and black, others knew it was white and gold. And both were correct according to how their brains processed shadows, context, and assumptions about ambient light. It wasn't just visual, it was reality fracturing. And it wasn't just a meme. It was a global reminder that what you see isn't always what is. There's a term for this in neuroscience perceptual constancy. Your brain tries to stabilize the chaos of the world by adjusting colors, shapes, even sounds to make sense. But different brains do it differently. Your constant isn't mine. Your version of red might be someone else's orange with extra passion. This extends to time. 2. Remember section 7, that warped, personalized timeline you skate across, multiply that by 8 billion people, and you've got a kaleidoscope of now moments swirling around each other, never truly aligning, and yet we make friends, fall in love, argue, forgive, order food, because we're not meant to share everything, we're just meant to try. That's the beauty of language, of empathy, of eye contact across loud parties. Language isn't perfect. It's like trying to hug someone while wearing a spacesuit, but it's better than nothing. It's a gesture, a metaphor, a hopeful stab in the dark. So maybe the miracle isn't that we misunderstand each other. It's that we ever understand each other at all. Even for a moment. Let's get cozy again. Imagine you're floating in your personal bubble of perception. Everything is tinted slightly by your mood. Your thoughts drift like soft snow. And Somewhere nearby, someone else is floating in their bubble, just a few inches away. Your bubbles touch. Maybe they don't fuse, but they ripple. They echo. They pass a tiny vibration between membranes, and that's enough. That's connection. As you settle deeper into your blanket tonight, think about how many different realities are humming outside your walls right now. In your neighborhood, your city, the world. Billions of private theaters, different directors, different plots. And yet, we all look at the same moon. Or at least, we think we do. Section 9. You're brushing your teeth in front of the bathroom mirror. You make eye contact with yourself, just for a second, and there it is, that strange flicker, that momentary sense of distance. Like, is that really me? Because here's the glitch. The reflection you see in the mirror isn't you. Not really. It's a delayed, reversed, flattened translation of your face. It's not even how you actually look, it's how light bounced off you, flipped, then hit your eyes at the speed of truth filtered through a half-second lag. Welcome to the uncanny valley of self-perception. Your mirror self is a ghost, a performance, a preview of your body surface, and yet you interact with it daily, grooming it, smiling at it, arguing with it in your head like it owes you money. Now zoom out, think about all the times you've seen your face, not in mirrors, but in selfies. Photos, Zoom calls, store windows. It's never consistent. Lighting changes it, angles distort it, filters improve it. Your brain blends these into an idea of yourself, a visual average, a greatest hits album of your face. And you've grown attached to that fiction. We all have. Scientists, psychologists, and designers of bad dating apps still argue about whether we prefer mirror images or camera shots. But here's the kicker, you don't know what you look like. Not in the same way others do. You've never seen your true face. You've only seen reflections and projections, reverse-engineered impressions interpreted through optics and memory. Your mental self-image is like a character in The Sims made from fragments, prone to glitching, always slightly off. Let's talk about Keiko. Keiko spent most of her life thinking she looked okay. Then one day, a friend took a candid photo, bad lighting, weird angle, wrong side of her face. Keiko hated it. It didn't match the version in her mind. She spiraled for days. But everyone else said, "You look exactly the same as always." That's the mismatch. The mirror self-gap. And it runs deep. There's a phenomenon called the mirror exposure effect. It means the more you see something, the more you like it. You've seen your mirrored face more often than your real one, so naturally, you prefer it. When someone takes a photo, your brain goes, "Wait, who is that slightly asymmetrical stranger?" This is also why voice recordings sound weird. Your voice in your head is softened by skull vibrations. The real thing, higher, thinner, unfamiliar. It's not worse, it's just externalized. You're not used to hearing yourself as others do. Same with mirrors, same with cameras, same with you. Let's go deeper. There's a neurological condition called prosopagnosia, or face blindness. People with it can't recognize faces, not even their own. To compensate, they memorize voices, walking styles, clothing. To them, identity is behavior, not appearance. In a way, that's more honest, because appearance is flimsy. It's performative. You can change your look, you can grow a beard, dye your hair, wear a hat, cry in a Whole Foods. But who you are, that's deeper, messier, less photogenic. There's a mirror test used on animals and children to measure self-awareness. You put a mark on their forehead without them knowing, then let them look in a mirror. If they touch the mark on their own head, They've recognized themselves. Some apes pass. Dolphins pass. Magpies pass. Some toddlers don't. But here's the twist. Maybe we don't pass either. Maybe the self we recognize is not real recognition, but habitual illusion. A familiar mask. That's not depressing. That's freedom. Because if the self is a mask, you can try on new ones. You're not trapped by your reflection. You're just renting it. Let's shift into the poetic for a moment. Your mirror self lives in a parallel world. It mimics your gestures, but backwards. It blinks when you blink, smiles when you smile, but it will never hug you, never speak to you, never step forward and say, "Hey, we've been faking this for years, haven't we?" And you know what? That's okay. Because sometimes we need that version of ourselves. The composed one, the symmetrical one, the one who looks like they've got it together, especially when we don't. Remember back in section 2 when we talked about memory being a remix? Your reflection is kind of the same. It's a visual memory, updated live, a feedback loop of posture, facial tension, vibe. You look to your reflection not just for appearance, but for confirmation. Am I tired? Am I still me? Am I okay? And the mirror answers, close enough. Let's wind this down with a nighttime visualization picture, a room full of mirrors. You walk through it slowly. Your reflection follows. Each pane shows a slightly different version. One is younger. One is smiling. One is crying. One is asleep. And one isn't moving. Chilled, right. But here's the point. None of those are you, and all of them are. You are the observer, the constant, the soft light behind the glass. So tonight, when you turn off the light and your reflection disappears, remember that what really matters was never the surface. It was the stillness underneath. The quiet you, the one nobody else sees, but you always carry. Section 10. You're sitting in a chair, still, breathing, aware. But here's a question. Who is sitting in the chair? Is it you, the body, you, the voice in your head, you, the vague collection of memories and passwords and snack preferences, or is you just the story your brain tells to hold everything else together? Here's the unsettling, sleep-enhancing idea consciousness might just be a narrative generator, a sort of internal podcast your brain produces to make sense of the chaos. You think you're the author, but maybe you're just the narrator, and not even a particularly reliable one. Let's unpack that. There's a theory in neuroscience called the narrative self. The idea is that your brain strings together your experiences like scenes in a movie, editing, deleting, rearranging all to create a feeling of continuity. But the you that exists across time, that stable identity you defend in arguments and write in job applications, it might be mostly fiction. Scientists, psychologists, and very sleep-deprived philosophers still argue about whether there's a core self or if we're just improvising the role of me based on whatever story makes sense in the moment. Think about it. Your personality shifts depending on context. You're different with your friends than with your parents. Different when you're tired. Different in a crisis. Different when no one's watching. But you don't feel fragmented. You feel whole. Why? Because your brain fills in the gaps. I'm always like this, it says, despite all evidence to the contrary. Like a publicist smoothing out your weirdest press appearances. Here's a true story. A man named Phineas Gage survived a railroad spike going through his frontal lobe in 1848. Before the accident, he was friendly and responsible. Afterward, impulsive, rude, prone to profanity. His friends said he was no longer Gage. Same body, different narrative. The brain damage didn't erase his memories, it rewired how he constructed himself. That's what your frontal lobe does. It manages planning, morality, social awareness, and identity. Take that out of the equation, and the story changes. Here's a more everyday example. Have you ever watched yourself doing something in a dream, like watching a movie of yourself? That's called autoscopic perspective, and it's more common than you'd think. The brain loves building point of view stories, even if you're asleep and your body is snoring like a medieval accordion. But here's the weirdest part: even when you're awake, your brain might be doing the same thing, watching you, narrating you, stitching together moments into a coherent Let's meet Anya. Anya is walking home after a long day. She's tired, mind wandering, listening to a podcast. Then she stumbles. Her reflexes catch her. And instantly, she thinks, ugh, I always trip when I'm distracted. Typical me. That sentence is important. Typical me. It's the brain's way of maintaining the illusion of consistency. It turns a random event, a slip of the foot, into part of an identity. I'm the kind of person who trips when I'm tired. The story reinforces the self. But if the stumble had happened during a hike, or while texting someone important, the brain might have told a different story. I'm too clumsy to multitask. Or, this wouldn't have happened if I had better shoes. Same stumble. New genre. That's narrative consciousness at work. Your brain doesn't just record events, it interprets them. Assigns cause, draws morale, adds soundtrack. You're not a camera, you're a filmmaker, and a slightly dramatic one at that. Remember back in section 6 when we talked about dream logic leaking into your waking mind? This is the next layer. Your waking life is a dream in narrative form, and you're both the dreamer and the dreamt. There's even a theory called the default mode network, a set of brain regions that lights up when you're not focused on anything external, just daydreaming, wandering, storytelling. It's when you replay conversations, imagine outcomes, edit your memories, and that's when the you gets updated. Like a Wikipedia page that anyone with an emotion and a little free time can edit. Some researchers think this is what gives rise to self-awareness. The ability to not only act, but explain your actions. Not accurately, but narratively. I did this because I'm this kind of person. It's comforting, even when it's wrong. Here's a thought for your mental sandbox. If you could pause your brain's narration, even for a second, what would you be without it? No story, no name, just sensations, breaths, the hum of a world not filtered through meaning. That's not terrifying, that's peace. It's the state meditator's chase, the quiet place beneath the narration, where the self dissolves, and you're just there. No commentary, no edits, just pure experience. You might never stay there long, but even touching it briefly is enough to make you wonder, who am I when I stop telling myself who I am? So tonight, as you lie in the dark, listening to the story in your head soften into mist, try this pause. The narrator, let go of the plot, float between the paragraphs. And remember, you are not the story. You are the space where the story is told. Section 11. You're the main character. Obviously, this is your movie, your soundtrack, your slow zoom into the fridge at midnight. You narrate your life like you're auditioning for an indie documentary. And here she was again, microwaving leftover spaghetti at 2:14 pondering the entropy of all things. But what if that's not the real picture? What if you're not the hero? What if you're the audience? There's a concept in cognitive science called the illusion of control. It's the feeling that you're steering your life's wheel, when often you're just watching the road from the passenger seat, giving directions after you've already passed the turn. You feel like the driver, but your hands aren't on the wheel. They're on the popcorn bucket. Remember section 4, when we talked about how your brain might make decisions before you're aware of them. That theory doesn't just poke holes in free will, it kind of nudges you out of the protagonist's chair. You're not choosing your next thought. You're reacting to it. You're not crafting the plot. You're being shown the highlights. And your consciousness, your sweet, sleepy inner voice, is whispering commentary to keep things feeling cohesive. Scientists, psychologists, and overly committed improv actors still argue about the self's actual role in behavior, but there's a compelling idea known as the epiphenomenon of consciousness, the thought that your awareness is like the steam from a boiling pot, not the cause of action, just a side effect. Let's look at a relatable story. Marcus is late for work. Again, he spills coffee, misses the train, gets rained on. By the time he arrives, he's angry, soaked, and irrationally convinced that the universe is targeting him personally. He mutters, "Of course this would happen. Just my luck." But let's rewind. Was it luck or a cascade of prior decisions he wasn't aware of in real time? The snoozed alarm, the overconfidence in coffee cup grip strength, the underestimated cloud density. Marcus didn't script this. He watched it unfold. Then he added narration to make it make sense. That's the audience effect. You don't create the movie, you experience it. You don't choose your thoughts, you watch them pass. You don't decide who you are, you observe yourself and say, yeah, that must be me. There's a term called the observing self. It's the idea that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your impulses, but the part of you that notices them. Like a person sitting in a theater, watching the movie of your life. Sometimes it's comedy. Sometimes it's horror. Sometimes it's just you opening and closing the fridge 4 times in a row, hoping a new snack has materialized. So, what's the twist? It's not that you're powerless, it's that your power is different than you thought. Less about control, more about attention. You might not choose the scenes, but you choose how long you stay in them. You choose which part of the screen you focus on. Think of your mind like a live stream. Stuff is happening. You can't pause it, but you can shift the camera, zoom in, zoom out, turn down the volume, put it in grayscale, and add moody jazz if you want. That's what mindfulness is. By the way, not some mystical brain state, just the ability to say, oh, I see what's happening, without getting sucked into the plot. Here's a wild little fact: studies show that people are happier when they're paying attention to what they're doing, even if it's boring. Washing dishes, for example, produces more satisfaction than daydreaming about vacation while washing dishes. Your brain prefers present tense reality even when it's just soap and plates. Why? Because that's when the audience becomes the screen. When the distance collapses, when you stop watching your life and start experiencing it. Let's try something dreamy. Picture yourself walking through a forest. You're not narrating. You're not planning. You're just there, leaves crunching, wind brushing your ears, light flickering through branches. You're not you, the thinker. You're just the pair of eyes receiving it all. You're the camera. You're the light, peaceful. Right. Because when you stop being the star of your own show, you make room for wonder. When you stop trying to be the writer, the actor, and the director, you finally get to enjoy the story. And if the story turns messy, good, that's where the best scenes happen. So tonight, as the curtain of sleep falls and the credits roll on today's episode of You the Series, give yourself permission to stop performing. Stop explaining, stop editing, just watch, notice the flickers, feel the music, and trust that the story continues. Even when you drift off, especially then, because sometimes the best audience moment is the one where you quietly say, wow, I didn't see that coming. Section 12. You open your eyes in the morning and see the ceiling, or at least that's what your brain tells you. But here's the twist. You didn't see it first. You predicted it, and then your brain filled in the details afterward. Your vision is not a raw feed from the outside world. It's not a live stream of photons piping directly into your skull. No, it's a guessing game. A fast, silent subconscious. Bet about what's probably out there, and your brain, it's been winning this bet most of your life. But when it loses, well, that's when the cracks show. Let's introduce the term predictive processing. It's a leading theory in neuroscience that suggests your brain is a prediction machine. It constantly models the world, forecasts what will happen next, and compares that model to incoming sensory data. If the model is right, no problem. If it's wrong, error signal, adjust, update, try again. It's not perception, it's controlled hallucination, and the only reason it works is because you've gotten very good at hallucinating the world accurately. But not perfectly. Let's talk about déjà vu. That eerie, soft glitch where a moment feels familiar, but you know it shouldn't. Predictive processing explains it this way. Your brain made a prediction so good, so fast, so eerily spot on that it fooled itself into thinking it already happened. Your internal movie accidentally synced with the trailer, and the result, a spooky tingle. Scientists, philosophers, and illusionists with YouTube channels still argue about how deeply predictive processing affects your experience. Some believe it influences not just vision, but emotion, belief, even identity. Let's take a fun example, optical illusions. The Miller-Lyer illusion, the one with two horizontal lines that look different in length because of arrowheads at their ends. They're the same length, but your brain refuses to believe it. Why? Because it predicts that certain visual cues mean closer or farther away. That prediction messes with perception. Your brain isn't being fooled. It's being faithful to its training. And the training says lines like this mean depth. So it builds the world based on that guess. Even when it's wrong, let's meet Sam. Sam's walking into a room they've never been in before. But their brain has seen similar rooms. Beige walls, window to the left, potted plant. Sam's brain fills in the rest. There's probably a chair in the corner, and then there is a chair. Prediction confirmed. Reality reinforced. But if the chair isn't there, the brain doesn't panic. It updates silently, smoothly, like a software patch. Your whole experience is this constant model correction. Now let's get sneakier. What if your brain is so confident in its prediction that it ignores the incoming data? That's what happens in inattentional blindness. When you're so focused on one thing, you literally don't see something else no matter how obvious it is. Like the famous invisible gorilla experiment, people counting basketball passes often don't see the person in a gorilla suit walk through the scene. Why? Because the brain didn't expect a gorilla. So it edited it out, like a director saying, "This scene doesn't match the script. Cut it." Here's a bedtime fact: around 90% of the signals your visual cortex processes are internal, not from your eyes, but from your brain's own predictions. That means you're seeing mostly memory, assumption, expectation. You are hallucinating stability. And when something breaks the pattern, that's when you become aware. That's why you notice typos. or weird smells, or when someone says duck and you definitely thought they said something else. Remember back in section 5 where we talked about blind spots and masking? This is the engine behind that magic trick. Your brain isn't patching the gaps because it's faulty, it's doing it because that's how the whole system works. Let's try an experiment. Look at your hand. Move it slowly. Now close your eyes. Picture your hand still moving. Your brain fills in the motion. You feel like you know where it is, even without vision. That's prediction. That's internal modeling. And that's why when your hand hits the corner of the table, it feels like betrayal, because reality didn't match the map. So what does this mean for your nightly rituals of thinking too much in the dark? It means that everything you see, the ceiling, the stars, the outline of your furniture in the dim glow, is filtered through a model. And if the model shifts due to stress, memory, dreams, or fear, you start seeing different things, not ghosts, not hallucinations, just predictions with less data. That's why the dark plays tricks. Not because it hides reality, but because it removes evidence. And without enough evidence, your brain gets creative. So tonight, as your eyes close and your brain starts drafting tomorrow's world, remember this: you don't need perfect data. You just need close enough. Your dreams are just another layer of prediction, a softer, freer hallucination. And when you wake up, your brain will get back to work, filling in, smoothing out, telling you, yes, that's the ceiling. It's been there all along, even if it hasn't. Section 13. You wake up, brush your teeth, scroll a little too long, then wonder why you're already out of time. You didn't plan that. You didn't choose to do any of it, really. It just happened. That's the trick of habit. You think you're living a day, you're actually running a program. There's a statistic that floats around: roughly 40% of your daily behavior is habit. But depending on who you ask, scientists, psychologists, or your grandma with the crossword addiction, the number might be way higher. The point is, most of what you do is on autopilot. You are a creature of routines disguised as a creature of choices. Let's talk about a term that sounds fancy but is deeply relatable: automaticity. It's the process by which an action becomes so familiar that you perform it without conscious thought. Like tying your shoes, typing LOL even though you didn't laugh, or opening Instagram without realizing you picked up your phone. Automaticity is your brain saying, look, we've done this 100 times. I'm not burning calories on it today. And that's helpful if you had to consciously think through every step of brushing your teeth or unlocking your front door. You'd collapse before lunch. Habits are your brain's way of offloading decision-making to preserve energy and increase efficiency. But here's the distortion: the line between choice and habit is blurry. You think you're choosing. You're really remembering what you always do and replaying it like a favorite sitcom rerun. Let's meet Ravi. Ravi says he's a spontaneous guy, loves trying new things, but every Thursday, he orders the same noodles, sits in the same chair, rewatches the same show. One day he catches himself mid-scroll and thinks, wait, have I already lived this day? Spoiler, kinda. Yeah, that's not déjà vu. That's habitual time travel. You're doing what your past self trained your body to do. And your present self is tagging along for the ride like a tourist who forgot their itinerary. And habits don't stop at behavior. They hijack thoughts too. Ever found yourself spiraling into the same worry loop? What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if I left the stove on and I'm actually dreaming inside a fire? These aren't fresh thoughts. They're mental habits, neural grooves, worn deep by repetition. You don't think them, you fall into them. Your brain's a pattern machine. Remember, and like we explored in section 12, it's always predicting. If a certain pattern of thought has occurred often enough, the brain assumes, yes, it's 9:42 p.m. Time for the anxiety tango. Let's drop a strange bedtime fact your habits can fire without your permission. In one study, rats trained to run a maze continued to run it even when the reward was removed. Their brains had chunked the sequence into a loop: start, run, turn, finish, and hit play as soon as the maze appeared. Now replace the rat with you. The maze is your morning, wake, scroll, sip, check, frown, repeat. You might feel in control, but the lever's already been pulled. Scientists call this cue-based habit formation. Your environment becomes a script. Your desk chair, drawer work mode. Your bed, car phone scroll mode. Your couch, targ snack mode. Your ex's playlist, targ emotional meltdown mode. And this is why breaking habits feels like breaking reality. You're not just changing behavior, you're interrupting a story your brain has told so many times it forgot it was fiction. Remember in section 10 when we said consciousness might be a narrator? Well, habits are the director. The one yelling again and shoving you back on stage. But here's the soft twist. Not all habits are traps. Some are wings. You can build habits that carry you gently toward who you want to be. Kindness can be a habit, curiosity, stillness, saying thank you to your tea before you sip it like a wizard in a Studio Ghibli film. The trick isn't to break habits, it's to notice them, to wake up inside the routine, to catch yourself halfway through brushing your teeth and think, yes, here I am again. Because awareness is how you reclaim time. Let's do a sleepy little visualization. You're walking through a forest made of your daily actions. Every path is one you've taken before. Some are worn smooth, others are overgrown. But tonight, you stop. You look around. You choose a slightly different trail, a softer step, a pause before the next motion. That's all it takes. Not revolution, just interruption. A crack in the loop. A breath between scripts. So as you lie here, noticing the rhythm of your breath, know this. You are not your habits. You are the one who sees them. And tomorrow, when your body reaches for the phone, the coffee, the routine maybe, just maybe, you'll pause and choose, even if it's just for 1 second. Section 14. Try saying this sentence out loud quietly, like you're sharing a secret with your pillow. My thoughts are shaped by my words. Now say it again. But this time, change the word shaped to limited. Feel that little shift, that subtle tightening of meaning. Language doesn't just express your thoughts, it builds them. This is the distortion you think in words, and the words you think with control what you can think about. Let's introduce the big term linguistic relativity, sometimes called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It's the idea that the language you speak influences the way you perceive and categorize the world. Scientists, anthropologists, and poets who get into fights at dinner parties still argue about how strong this effect is. But it's clear language isn't neutral. It bends perception. Some languages have dozens of words for snow. Some have none. Some languages don't use left or right. They use cardinal directions like north and south. That means their speakers always know which way they're facing. Literally, always. Some languages don't separate past and future the way English does, so they experience time more fluidly. You think in English probably, but English is not reality. It's a map, a tool. And like any map, it leaves things out. Take color, for example. In Russian, there are separate words for light blue Goluboy and dark blue Sinai. In English, we just say blue. Turns out, Russian speakers can distinguish between shades of blue faster than English speakers. Their language carved a sharper boundary into the spectrum. So when you think, the sky is blue, you're already simplifying, already compressing a kaleidoscope into a syllable. Let's get more intimate. Have you ever had a feeling you couldn't describe, like a nostalgia that didn't belong to anything? A sadness wrapped in hope. A moment so specific, it escaped language. That's not your fault. That's your language running out of tools. There's a Japanese word, natsukasha, the warm, bittersweet feeling of a fond memory. A Portuguese word, saudade, a deep emotional state of longing for something absent. A Tagalog word, gigil, the irresistible urge to pinch something unbearably cute. English just says, it's a vibe. Let's meet Darius. Darius is trying to explain how he feels about someone he used to love, but every word sounds too big, or too small, or too dramatic. He settles on, I don't know. It's complicated, and it is. But maybe it's only complicated because the language doesn't exist yet, and until it does, his thoughts swirl in abstraction. Untouchable, unformed. That's the danger of language. It can both reveal and distort. We mistake the word for the thing. We say love and pretend it's the same in every context. We say fear and forget how many flavors it has. We say I'm fine and mean everything except that. Here's a spooky, wonderful bedtime fact. Your brain rehearses language even when you're not speaking. It runs internal scripts. It argues silently. It plays both sides of imaginary conversations. That voice in your head, it's not you. It's your brain's language interface. And sometimes, it gets hacked. There's a concept called semantic infiltration. It happens when political or marketing language sneaks into your brain and starts shaping how you frame reality. Like saying collateral damage instead of innocent people hurt. Or enhanced interrogation instead of torture. Or conscious uncoupling instead of very expensive breakup. The language softens, spins, rewrites, and your thoughts follow suit. Even small things matter. If you call it a cheat day, you frame food as moral. If you say I have to work, you turn your choices into burdens. Change that to I get to work, and suddenly you're grateful, or at least faking it convincingly. Words are spells, spoken or silent. They summon entire realities. Remember section 10 when we talked about the narrative self? Well, guess what the narrator uses to keep the story going? Language. Every sentence you think is a step in the plot. So what happens if you change the vocabulary? What happens if you replace failure with redirection, or broken with unfinished, or I can't with I'm learning to? You don't just feel different, you think different. Because your internal world rearranges to fit the new frame. Let's pause for a dreamy thought. Imagine your thoughts as a field of glowing fireflies, each one a word. Some are bright, some are flickering, some are borrowed from songs or books or people you once loved, and some are yours, alone, tiny, blinking lights with no name yet. Your job is not to catch them all, just to notice, to name what you can, to leave space for what you can't, and tonight, as your mind quiets, let it whisper not in conclusions, but in possibility. Let it hum in a language that doesn't need grammar. Let it wrap you in a wordless sentence of softness, because even if you can't name the feeling, you're still allowed to feel it. Section 15. So here we are. You're lying still now. Your breath is slow. The world is quiet. And if you're still with me, congratulations, you've made it to the final, and perhaps most quietly unsettling reality distortion of the night. Let's talk about the simulation. But not in the matrixy, leather trench coat, dodging bullets in slow motion kind of way. No, we're not here for action movie tropes. We're here for a deeper, softer, stranger question. What if reality isn't real, not in the glitches in the code sense, not even in the we live in a computer sense, but in the personal, psychological sense that everything you experience is filtered through you? And if that's true, then the simulation is yours. Let's unpack this sleepily. You wake up every day inside a body you didn't choose, with thoughts that arise unbidden, inside a world you can never truly check against anything else. No backup reality, no external standard, just your own private stream of perception. Remember Section 8 where we talked about Umwelt's your personal bubble of reality. That's your simulation, built from your senses, edited by your beliefs, skinned with your culture, lit by your memories. Every tree you see, every word you hear, every bite of your favorite snack is not the thing itself. It's the brain's model of that thing. A best guess rendering? Scientists, philosophers, and late-night forum posters with suspicious usernames still argue about simulation theory. Some think there's a real base-level reality somewhere out there. Others say, why does it matter if your experiences are consistent, rich, and meaningful? Who cares what's behind the curtain? Here's the kicker. The simulation might be real because you made it. Let's meet Zara. Zara walks through the same park every morning, over time. Her brain stops seeing the details. It fills them in. The trees are still there. The squirrels are doing squirrel things. But one morning, she's grieving. Suddenly, everything looks different. The light feels heavier. The path seems longer. She's not seeing the park, she's seeing her version of it. That's the simulation, not a digital projection, but an emotional overlay. You don't just see reality, you tint it. And it changes day to day, hour to hour. Sometimes reality is soft and forgiving. Sometimes it feels sharp and suspicious. The data doesn't change. Your internal lens does. And the wildest part, so does everyone else's. Everyone is running a different simulation. That means every conversation, every argument, every love story is two simulated worlds colliding. No wonder things get weird. Here's a strange fact for your dreams. Tonight, physicist John Wheeler once proposed that we live in a participatory universe. That is, reality isn't there until it's observed. Consciousness doesn't just read the simulation, it helps write it. So maybe your thoughts do more than interpret your world. Maybe they generate it. What you believe changes what you notice. What you expect changes how you feel. What you fear changes what seems true. And round it goes. Back in Section 1, we said that assumptions shape your perception. Here at the end, we see that perception, in turn, shapes everything else. So, is the simulation real? Yes and no. And it doesn't matter. Because this moment, right now, this gentle drift toward sleep, this awareness of your own awareness is as real as anything has ever been. You've spent your whole life building the simulation, filling it with meaning and memory and jokes you still laugh at, even though no one else gets them. It's your home, your playground, your mirror, and if it ever feels too strange or too heavy, remember that you can change it. You can open a window, shift the color temperature, mute the scary parts, add subtitles, insert a laugh track. Because you're not just the user, you're the designer. Let's close with a soft visualization. Picture your reality like a snow globe. Inside it is everything you know, your room, your thoughts, your people, your routines. Now imagine holding that snow globe in your hands. Gently, lovingly, not trapped inside it, but cradling it. You are not your simulation. You are the awareness that sees it. You are the watcher behind the screen. So tonight, let the simulated world fade. Let the pixels blur. Let the noise quiet and slip softly back into the code until morning. Tonight, we wandered through